Rebirth, I held my calculator case. He told me to unlock it. His screen cracked. The second time I died, I was not surprised. That was the strange part. The car was upside down. Rain hammered the windows like fists, and the seatbelt cut into my collarbone, while the river climbed over my knees. I should have screamed. I should have begged God or fate or any passing ghost to drag me out by my hair. Instead, as cold water filled the space under my chin, the only thing I thought was, I still remember the combination. 4 numbers. My mother's birthday. The lock on my old calculator case. The object that ruined me before any knife, betrayal, or accident ever could. Then the world went white, and I opened my eyes to the smell of disinfectant, sharpened pencils, and teenage fear. I was standing in the corridor outside Exam Hall 3 at Eastbridge Academy, wearing a navy blazer that still had my name stitched cleanly above the heart, Alara Venn. My hands were not broken. My nails were not split. My hair, which had been cut blunt and practical at 27, was long again, tied with a red ribbon like I was some harmless honor student from a glossy school brochure. In my right hand was my calculator case. Black plastic, reinforced corners, silver lock. In front of me, smiling like the hero of a tragedy he planned to survive, was Adrian Vale. He looked 17. Perfect. Untouched. Alive. He said the exact words he had said 10 years ago. Alara, don't make this awkward. Unlock it. His voice was soft enough for the teachers to think he was worried, loud enough for the students to hear the accusation. Behind him, Mara Lynn pressed a hand to her mouth as if she was fighting tears, though in my first life those tears had dried the moment the disciplinary committee expelled me. Mr. Calder, our exam supervisor, adjusted his glasses and stared at the locked case in my hand. The corridor had frozen into the shape of a courtroom. I remembered the next 30 seconds so clearly that my stomach tightened before they happened. In my first life, I had been stupid enough to believe innocence had weight. I had believed that if I unlocked the case and showed them my approved calculator, my spare batteries, and the folded charm my mother tucked inside for luck, the rumor would collapse. Instead, inside the inner sleeve, they found a thin blue memory card I had never seen before. On it were screenshots of the scholarship exam answers. Adrian had stepped forward then, his face pale with beautiful disappointment, and said, "I saw her near the faculty printer yesterday." Mara had cried. Mr. Calder had looked away. My scholarship vanished before lunch. My mother's medical support followed. My future became a locked room with no key, and Adrian Vale inherited first rank, the valedictorian medal, and the company internship meant for me. Now I held the same case, but I was not the same girl. 10 years of humiliation had burned the softness out of me. 10 years of working under names that did not belong to me, cleaning offices where men like Adrian left confidential documents in bins, learning how systems failed because everyone trusted polished faces, had taught me more than Eastbridge Academy ever did. I knew which student sold exam leaks. I knew which teacher covered them up for donations. I knew Mara's sobs were rehearsed in bathroom mirrors. I knew Adrian's family scholarship fund was a laundering machine dressed in philanthropy. Most importantly, I knew what Adrian expected from me: panic, obedience, and the clumsy honesty of a girl who had no idea she had been selected as the sacrifice. So I did what my first life never allowed. I smiled. Not wide, not cruel, just enough for Adrian's expression to twitch, because he had written this scene with me as prey, and prey was not supposed to enjoy the spotlight. "Of course," I said, lifting the case slightly. "But since you're so certain something is inside, you won't mind recording the whole inspection, right?" A murmur passed through the students. Adrian's eyes flicked to his phone. He had already been recording. He always recorded when he wanted a victim to look guilty later. In my first life, that clip had been edited into a 12-second humiliation that followed me across every university application. This time, I wanted the full version. Mr. Calder frowned. "Miss Venn, this is not a performance." "No," I said. "It's evidence." I turned toward the security camera above the notice board. In my first life, I had not known it was a dummy. Eastbridge installed real cameras only near the front office and donor hall. The exam corridors were decorated with fake black domes to scare students. Adrian knew that. So did Mr. Calder. That was why they chose this corridor. But during the 10 minutes before I died and woke back here, the universe had given me one mercy. I woke at 8:21 a.m., 14 minutes before Adrian's trap. 14 minutes had been enough to visit the robotics cupboard, steal a battery pack, borrow a pinhole lens from the drone kit, and slide my phone, already streaming to a private cloud account, into the torn lining of my calculator case. Adrian took out his phone with a patient's eye.
Fine.
I'll record it. Everyone can see we're being fair. His phone was the newest Veiltech model, a silver prototype none of us were meant to touch. He loved showing it off by pretending he did not care that people looked. He tapped the screen, angled it toward me, and for a second I saw his reflection over mine. Neat black hair, calm gray eyes, mouth curved with sympathy. That was Adrian's true talent. He never looked like he was attacking you. He looked like he was forgiving you in advance. Unlock it, he repeated. I turned the tiny wheels on the case.
1904.
My mother's birthday clicked into place. The sound snapped through the corridor, and Mara inhaled sharply, ready to perform shock when the planted card appeared. I opened the lid slowly. There was my calculator, regulation approved, labeled with my student number. There were 2 spare batteries in their paper pack. There was the folded red charm from my mother. And under the elastic strap, exactly where it had been in my first life, sat the blue memory card Adrian's friend had slipped in during homeroom. Gasps bloomed around me like poisonous flowers. Mara whispered, "Oh, Alara." Adrian's phone moved closer, hungry for my face. Mr. Calder reached out. "Do not touch anything." I nodded. Agreed. Then I looked straight into Adrian's camera and said, "Before anyone removes that card, please ask Adrian why he knows the case unlocks with my mother's birthday." The corridor went silent in a different way. Not the silence of accusation. The silence of a machine finding sand in its gears. Adrian blinked once. "What?" "You told me to unlock it before Mr. Calder even asked what the lock was," I said. "You also told me last Friday that using family birthdays as passwords was stupid." Funny coincidence. His smile returned, but smaller. "We're classmates. You talk about your mother all the time." A few students shifted. I had never talked about my mother at school, not because I was ashamed, but because illness made rich children uncomfortable. I kept her hospital schedule folded in my pocket and my fear behind my teeth. Adrian knew her birthday because he had once used it to open my locker while pretending to help me carry books. I had forgiven him then. This time, forgiveness was not on the timetable. Mr. Calder's lips thinned. "Enough. The presence of unauthorized material is serious." "Then we should handle it seriously," I said. "Gloves, official incident bag, and the principal. Also, I request Adrian's recording be preserved, unedited, since he initiated it." Adrian laughed softly, the way people laugh when they want witnesses to join them. "Alara, you're making yourself look worse." "Am I?" I tilted the open case toward his phone. The pinhole lens inside my torn lining caught his screen clearly. His camera interface was not all that was open. Behind it, in the tiny stack of active windows, glowed a chat app with one unread message from Mara. Did she open it yet? If not, tell Calder to push harder. Adrian noticed my gaze half a second too late. His thumb jerked to swipe the chat away. The prototype phone slipped against the edge of my open calculator case, struck the metal corner, and hit the tile face down. The crack sounded like ice breaking over deep water. Everyone flinched. Adrian bent fast, but not fast enough. A spiderweb fracture crossed his perfect screen, splitting his reflection into 5 pieces. Through the broken glass, bright and impossible to deny, Mara's message still shone. Did she open it yet? If not, tell Calder to push harder. For one breath, nobody moved. Then somebody said, "Wait." Another student leaned closer. Someone else whispered, "Why would Mara know?" Mara's hand dropped from her mouth. Her tears forgot to fall. Mr. Calder looked at Adrian, then at the phone, then at me, and for the first time in 2 lifetimes, he did not look bored. He looked afraid. I closed my calculator case gently, leaving the memory card untouched inside, and said, "I think the exam can wait." That should have been the end of the setup, but Eastbridge Academy was not a place where truth won, because it was visible. Truth at Eastbridge needed witnesses, timing, leverage, and sometimes a little ugliness. Within 5 minutes, Principal Soren arrived in a charcoal suit that cost more than my mother's monthly medication. He did not ask if I was all right. He asked who had contacted him without going through proper procedure. That told me what I needed to know. In my first life, he had signed my expulsion before the forensic report came back. In this life, his first instinct was not justice. It was containment. Adrian recovered faster than I wanted him to. He picked up his cracked phone, locked the screen, and put on a wounded expression. "Sir, I was only trying to help." Alara became defensive.
My phone fell.
"I'm sure the message is being misunderstood." Mara nodded so hard a tear finally escaped. I was worried because people were saying she had something hidden. I texted Adrian because he was near her. That's all. It was elegant. Not perfect, but enough for adults who preferred a clean scandal. Mr. Calder straightened. The card was in her case. That remains the main fact. He sounded less like a teacher and more like a man repeating instructions. Principal Soren turned to me. "Miss Venn, come to my office. Bring the case." The old Alara would have obeyed because offices felt official and official places felt safe. But in my first life, the office had been where evidence disappeared. The blue memory card vanished after the hearing and returned in a sealed envelope with only the screenshots printed, no fingerprints, no metadata, no chain of custody.
"No," I said.
A ripple moved through the corridor. Principal Soren stared as if I had spoken in another language. "Excuse me?"
"No, irrapat."
"I will go to the office after the item is sealed in front of witnesses and after my guardian is contacted. Until then, the case stays visible." "You do not dictate procedure," he said. "I'm not dictating," I answered. "I'm asking you to follow one." I turned to the crowd. "Can someone call the student council president? School policy requires a student witness during misconduct evidence collection." That rule existed because Eastbridge advertised fairness to parents. No one used it because no accused student remembered the handbook while drowning in shame. I had spent nights after my expulsion reading every clause like a starving person licking crumbs off a plate. A tall girl near the lockers, Nessa Park, lifted her phone. Nessa had beaten me in debate once and hated Adrian with the clean, quiet hatred of someone who noticed things but lacked proof. "I'll call her," she said. Principal Soren's gaze sharpened. He recognized danger in organized students. Phones away. No one moved. That was the first tiny miracle of my rebirth. Not that I had evidence, but that the crack in Adrian's screen had cracked the room's obedience with it. The students were still afraid, still curious, still selfish, but curiosity can be a crowbar if you place it in the right gap. Adrian stepped closer to me, lowering his voice, so only I could hear. "You don't want to do this." His face still looked calm from a distance. Up close, the skin around his mouth had gone tight. "Neither did I whispered back. "But you started before I arrived." His eyes changed then. In my first life, I did not see the monster until after he had eaten my name. In this life, I watched the mask thin. "You think one cracked phone saves you," he murmured. "I think it makes you careless," I said. Then I raised my voice. "Adrian, please step back. I don't consent to private conversation while evidence is being discussed." Half the corridor heard. His expression smoothed instantly, but damage had already been done. Predators hate when prey narrates the hunt. The student council president arrived with 2 prefects and a tablet containing the handbook. Her name was Celia Hart, and in my first life, she had signed the witness form without reading it, because Principal Soren told her it was routine. She had later become a corporate lawyer with a reputation for burying whistleblowers. At 17, she was already practicing. "Policy says the evidence must be sealed," Celia said after scanning the clause, her voice reluctant. "A staff member and a student witness must sign the label." Principal Soren's smile tightened. "Thank you, Celia."
He looked at me.
"Satisfied?" "Almost," I said. "I want the memory card photographed in place before removal, and I want everyone present to state who touched the case today." Mara made a small wounded noise. "This is humiliating." I turned to her. Then you'll want it resolved quickly. Her eyes flashed. There she was, the real Mara underneath the trembling lashes. Marilyn was not stupid. She was better than Adrian at improvising because she had lived her whole life as a scholarship girl among heirs, learning to weaponize helplessness before they weaponized charity. In my first life, I had pitied her. She told me her parents fought, that Adrian was controlling, that she wished she had my courage. She had borrowed my hairpin the morning she planted the card. I had hugged her afterward, like a fool comforting the knife. The photographing took 3 minutes. Each second stretched. Mr. Calder put on gloves from the nurse's kit. Celia filmed with the school tablet. Principal Soren pretended this had been his plan all along. Adrian stood with his cracked phone half hidden in his palm, and Mara watched me as if trying to decide whether I was lucky or informed. When Mr. Calder lifted the blue card with tweezers, I saw the tiny white scratch near its corner and felt a wave of nausea, so strong I almost swayed. In my first life, that scratch had been in the newspaper photo after the scandal. Genius girl expelled for exam fraud. The headline said, although I was only a child with an approved calculator and a dying mother. State your contact with the case, I said once the card was sealed. Principal Soren began to object, but Celia, hungry for procedural cleanliness, nodded. That's reasonable. The students started speaking. I didn't touch it. I saw it on her desk in homeroom. Mara borrowed her case yesterday for a calculator check. That last voice came from Theo Baines, a quiet boy with ink on his fingers. Mara snapped her head toward him. I didn't borrow it. I asked to see the sticker. Theo flushed, but did not back down. You open the zipper pocket. It doesn't have a zipper pocket, I said. It has a torn lining. Now every eye returned to Mara. Pattern disruptions are not explosions. They are little wrong notes that teach the audience to listen harder. I had learned that from editing court transcripts for a law firm that paid me under the table after Eastbridge made me unemployable. People do not believe a confession that arrives too early. They believe a trail of small impossibilities. Mara knew the rhythm too. She began to cry again, but this time there was anger behind it. I can't believe you're all turning this on me. Alara is the one with answers in her case. Not answers, I said. Screenshots. On a card we haven't opened yet. Adrian's eyes met mine. He realized I knew something about the card he did not. Good. Because here was the second thing I had done in those 14 borrowed minutes. I switched the card. Not completely. I did not have time to steal Adrian's planted evidence and replace it with something theatrical. Life is not that clean. But when Mara slipped the card into my case during homeroom, I felt the tug in the lining because I was waiting for it. I excused myself, went to the bathroom, and photographed the card from every angle. Then I inserted it into the library printer terminal for 6 seconds, just long enough for the system to log its device ID and auto-index the hidden folder. I did not open the files. I did not need to. Eastbridge's network kept logs more faithfully than its teachers kept promises. Principal Soren ordered everyone into the conference room near the front office, where real cameras watched the donor plaques. He thought moving us there gave him control. I thought it gave me better lighting. My mother arrived 20 minutes later, wearing her faded green coat over hospital clothes. Seeing her alive almost broke me more than death had. She looked thinner than I remembered from that year, with violet shadows under her eyes and lipstick applied carefully to hide fear. Alara, she said, and the sound of my name in her voice pulled 10 years of grief up my throat. I wanted to run to her, to apologize for every day she had suffered after my fall, for every time I had been too proud to tell her I was drowning. Instead, I stayed seated, because Adrian was watching for weakness. My mother put one hand on my shoulder. What happened? Principal Soren began his polished summary, but I interrupted with something I had never dared to do in my first life. They found a memory card in my calculator case. Adrian demanded I unlock it. Mara texted him before the case was opened. His phone cracked, and the message was visible. The card has been sealed, but I am requesting network logs and an external forensic check. My mother's hand tightened. She was not an educated woman by Eastbridge standards. She cleaned dental clinics at night and memorized medication prices by necessity. But she understood traps. Poor women often do. She looked at Adrian with such quiet fury that his gaze slid away. Principal Soren folded his hands. Mrs. Venn, the school will investigate internally. No, my mother said. One word.
No apology. No tremble.
I loved her so fiercely in that moment that my eyes burned. My daughter's scholarship, reputation, and exam eligibility are involved. I want everything written down. Principal Soren's smile cooled. Of course. Adrian leaned forward. Mrs. Venn, I'm sorry this is happening. Alara and I are friends. I never wanted. Do not speak to me like you are already forgiven, my mother said. The room went still. Mara stared at the table. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because in my first life I had spent years believing I lost because I was weak. Maybe I had only been alone. Then Adrian made his first real mistake. He turned to Principal Soren and said, Sir, can we just check the card? The answers are there. This is wasting exam time. It sounded reasonable. It also revealed certainty. Celia's eyes lifted from her tablet. Nessa, who had insisted on sitting in as student witness, whispered, How do you know what's on it? Adrian paused. His cracked phone lay on the table between us, screen dark, fracture lines branching like lightning. Because that's what the anonymous report said, he answered. What anonymous report? I asked. Principal Soren's jaw tightened. There had been no mention of a report in the corridor. In my first life, I never saw it. Later, I learned why. It had been submitted through a student wellness portal under my own student ID. The principal's assistant brought printed forms. The anonymous report said a student had seen me loading exam answers onto a blue card behind the science block. It was timestamped 7:54 a.m. that morning. It came from my login. In my first life, that alone had buried me. In this life, I smiled again. Adrian saw it and went pale. That's impossible, I said. At 7:54, I was in the library borrowing a replacement compass from Ms. Hale. The library camera is real. Principal Soren's assistant looked up too quickly. Mr. Calder coughed. Mara's tears stopped completely. Because they had chosen the anonymous report time based on when homeroom began, assuming no one would bother checking where I had been 11 minutes earlier. Principal Soren did not like losing tempo. He stood. We will verify. Now, my mother said, before anyone has time to adjust anything. I glanced at Celia. Please note that request. Celia wrote it down. I could tell she hated me for making her useful. Good. Usefulness creates witnesses with pride. The library footage was retrieved after 23 minutes of stalling, 2 phone calls, and my mother refusing to sit down. There I was at 7:54, standing at the circulation desk with Miss Hale, signing the equipment log. My ID card was visible in my hand. So if the anonymous report came from my account while I was on camera elsewhere, someone else had my login. Mara whispered, maybe she sent it earlier and it posted late. The portal log's exact submission time, Celia said before she remembered whose side she wanted to be on. Adrian's eyes flicked toward her. It was a tiny movement, but I saw it. Celia saw it too and stiffened. Nothing turns a bystander faster than realizing the powerful expected them to remain stupid. Principal Soren requested IT. The IT technician, Mr. Evo, came in with the slow misery of a man who knew every rich parent by password reset. He confirmed the report came from Terminal 4 in the senior study room. At 7:54. Using my login, Terminal 4 had a camera above it. Principal Soren said, the angle may not be clear. Mr. Evo said, it is clear enough. They played the footage without sound. For 5 seconds, my old future sat on the screen. Mara Lynn entered the study room, wearing her blazer over her arm. Adrian followed, holding 2 coffees. Mara sat at Terminal 4. Adrian stood behind her, angled to block the doorway. She typed. He checked his phone. She laughed. He touched her shoulder. Then she logged out and they left separately, faces smooth.
No panic. No coercion. No misunderstanding.
Just 2 teenagers submitting a false report with the ease of people ordering lunch. Mara cried for real then. Not because she was sorry. Because the room had seen her without costume. He told me to, she said, pointing at Adrian so fast I almost respected it. He said Alara was going to take everything from us. He said it was just a scare. Adrian did not look at her. I don't know why she's lying. His voice was colder than before. The friendship act had died on the table next to his cracked phone. That isn't me in the video, Mara said wildly, switching strategies mid-breath. The quality is bad. It could be anyone. Mr. Evo zoomed in. Her face filled the screen, clear enough to see the tiny pearl clip she had bragged about buying from a boutique in the city. Someone in the back whispered, "That's definitely her." I should have felt satisfaction. I felt something sharper and less comfortable. In my first life, this moment never came. People did not gasp at Mara. They gasped at me. They did not look at Adrian with suspicion. They looked at him with pity for having trusted a cheater. I had imagined revenge as heat, but it was cold. It made every detail brighter. The dust under the conference table, the tremor in Mara's fingers, Adrian's cracked screen reflecting the ceiling lights in broken lines. I realized then that exposing the frame was not enough. If the story ended here, Adrian's family would call it teenage pressure. Mara would become the unstable accomplice. Principal Soren would bury the rest, and I would survive but not win. Survival was the old dream. Rebirth demanded more. So I asked the question that opened the floor beneath them. Why did Adrian need me removed before the scholarship exam? Principal Soren snapped. Miss Venn. I ignored him. The top scorer receives the Vail Future Fellowship and direct placement at Vail Tech's Youth Innovation Lab. Adrian's father funds it. Adrian was ranked second behind me. If I was expelled before sitting the exam, he became the projected winner. Adrian's laugh was soft and contemptuous. You think I need to cheat to beat you? The old Alara would have been cut by that. This Alara leaned forward. Yes. A few students inhaled. I held his gaze. I think you need to cheat because you can imitate brilliance, but you can't endure pressure. That's why you steal systems other people build, and call them leadership. His hand tightened around his phone. The screen lit under his thumb, cracked glass scattering the glow. A notification appeared from an app named vBridge Admin. Auto purge failed. External sync detected. It vanished instantly, but not before Nessa saw it. What's vBridge? She asked. Adrian's face went blank. Principal Soren said, too quickly, that is outside the scope of this matter. There it was. The door to the larger room. vBridge had been the cheating network in my first life, though I only learned its name years later while cleaning late at a tutoring center. Wealthy students paid for performance support. Teachers received consulting fees. Exam drafts moved through encrypted folders. Poor scholarship students became scapegoats when risk needed absorbing. Eastbridge was not a school with a scandal. It was a machine that manufactured clean winners. I did not have proof of all that yet. I had fragments, memory, and the gift of making guilty people overreact. Then let's stay in scope, I said. Open the card on an offline school computer with screen recording enabled. Adrian stood. This is insane. I'm not staying here to be accused by someone caught with answers. You were the one who wanted it opened, I said. Sit down. The words left me before I could polish them. They sounded like my mother. They sounded like every woman who had ever reached the end of patience and found authority waiting in her own mouth. Adrian sat, not because he obeyed me, but because standing made him look afraid. Mr. Evo set up an old laptop disconnected from the network. The sealed card was opened under Celia's recording. The room watched as the files appeared. 5 images, 3 text documents, and 1 hidden folder named Cleanup. Mr. Calder leaned closer, hungry for confirmation. The first image opened. It was a screenshot of the scholarship exam answer key. Gasps again. Principal Soren's face steadied. He thought he had the center back. Then Mr. Evo checked the file properties. Created on Adrian's prototype phone at 6:38 a.m., transferred from device name Avail X1. Modified at 8:09 a.m. by user Mlin. Copied to card at 8:13 a.m. The room went quiet enough to hear the laptop fan. Mara made a sound like a puncture balloon. Adrian did not move. For the first time, his stillness looked less like control and more like calculation with no answer. Mr. Calder whispered, that metadata can be altered. Mr. Evo looked offended. Not by a student in the 3 minutes between homeroom and inspection. Also, the card controller log matches. Principal Soren shot him a look that promised future unemployment. Mr. Evo saw it and looked down. I filed that away. Witnesses need protection before they become brave. The hidden cleanup folder was password protected. Adrian's mouth twitched. There was the trap inside the trap. In my first life, the school never opened it.
They did not need to.
The visible answer screenshots were enough to condemn me. But if anyone pushed further, the password would likely be something connected to me, making it look like mine. Can you open it? Celia asked. Mr. Evo shook his head. Not without tools. Adrian exhaled, too softly for most people to hear. I heard. I had spent 10 years listening for relief in rooms that wanted me gone. Try 1904, I said. My mother's hand pressed into my shoulder. Mr. Evo typed it. Incorrect. Good. Try Veil 17, I said. Adrian's eyes snapped to mine. Incorrect. Try Glass Prince, I said. Incorrect.
Nessa froned.
Why that? Because that's what Mara called him in the message thread he deleted last year, I said. Mara stared at me as if I had crawled out of her mirror. Miss Venn, stop guessing, Principal Soren said. One more, I answered. Try Sparrow. Adrian's face changed. Not much. Enough. Mr. Evo typed it. The folder opened. Mara whispered, No, the files inside were not exam answers. They were receipts. Names, payment amounts, student IDs, exam titles, teacher initials, and status notes. Beside my name was a line that read, Fall Target, Scholarship Girl, Low Family Power, Case Plant by M, Report by M, Push by A, Approval C. The initials at the end were CAL. Mr. Calder went gray. The room did not explode. Real scandals do not explode at first. They suffocate. Everyone suddenly understands that speaking makes them part of history. Celia stopped recording for one panic second, then started again. My mother said, Keep filming. Her voice was low and dangerous. Mr. Calder backed away from the table. I don't know what that is. Approval CAL, I said. Calder. He shook his head. Anyone can type initials. Then you won't mind an external investigation, my mother said. He looked at Principal Soren. Principal Soren did not look back, and in that abandonment I saw the entire hierarchy of Eastbridge. The powerful protect each other only until sacrifice becomes cheaper. Adrian leaned back. This is fabricated. By whom? I asked. You. His eyes hardened. By you. You're clearly prepared. You set this up. I nodded as if considering it. So your claim is that I hacked your prototype phone, created a cheating network spreadsheet, used Mara to submit a false report from my login, planted a memory card in my own case, arranged for your message to appear on your cracked screen, and then somehow made Mr. Calder's initials appear in a hidden folder I supposedly wanted no one to open. Theo, still near the door, muttered, That would make her a genius. The corner of Nessa's mouth lifted. Even Celia looked like she wanted to smile but feared it would be legally inconvenient. Adrian saw the room drifting and did what men like him do when logic stops serving them. He reached for intimacy. Ilara, he said softly, using the voice he had used when he walked me home after late study sessions, when he carried my mother's groceries, when he told me I was the only person who made him feel normal. You're angry. I get it. You think everyone is against you, but this isn't you. Let's talk privately before this goes too far. In my first life, that voice had been a hand over my mouth. It made me doubt my memories. It made me apologize for being hurt. This time I looked at my mother, then at the camera, then back at him. The last time I trusted you privately, you learned my passwords. Mara flinched. Adrian's eyes went flat. For a second, the whole room saw the contempt under his beauty. Then the door opened, and his father entered without knocking. Victor Vale did not walk into rooms. Rooms rearranged themselves around him. He was tall, silver-haired, immaculate, with the same gray eyes as Adrian and none of the softness. Behind him came two men in suits, and Principal Soren's courage returned like a dog hearing its owner. Mr. Vale, he said, relief almost visible. Victor glanced at the open laptop, the sealed card, the students filming, and his son's cracked phone. His expression did not change. Everyone except school administration and guardians leaves now. No, my mother said again. Victor looked at her as if noticing furniture had spoken. And you are? Her mother. Then you should want this handled discreetly. My mother smiled without warmth. Discreetly is how people like you steal from people like us. My heart slammed. In both lives, my mother had been tired, kind, and endlessly careful around authority. I had mistaken carefulness for fear. Now I understood she had been saving her strength for a day that deserved it. Victor turned to me. Miss Ven, whatever you think you have uncovered, you are a child holding stolen data. I'm a child holding evidence that your son and this school attempted to frame me, I said. My voice shook once. I let it. Courage that looks too smooth feels rehearsed. The card was found in my property after an anonymous report submitted through my stolen login. The metadata points to Adrian's phone and Mara's account. The hidden folder includes a payment ledger and staff initials. We have video of the false report being submitted. Multiple students and staff witnessed the chain of custody. If you want discretion, you should call a lawyer who understands evidence preservation, not one who frightens teenagers. One of Victor's suited men stepped forward. You need to stop recording. Nessa lifted her chin. We're on school property documenting a misconduct process involving students. You may be violating privacy law, he said. Celia, who had been silent too long, surprised herself by answering. School policy permits student witness recording during evidence collection when requested by the accused student. The suited man stared. Celia's hands trembled, but she did not lower the tablet. There are moments when people meet the version of themselves they have been pretending to be. Celia, who loved rules only when they protected power, found herself holding one like a shield for me. I saw the discomfort on her face and knew she would resent me forever. I also knew she would keep recording because pride is sometimes stronger than morality. Victor did not argue with children. He looked at Principal Soren. Suspend the exam for today. Secure the material. My office will coordinate. No, I said for the third time, and this one cost me. Victor's gaze landed on me fully. It felt like standing in front of a moving car. You are very fond of that word. I learned it late, I said. I'm using it properly now. My mother's hands squeezed my shoulder. I continued before fear could close my throat. The exam cannot be suspended only for me while Adrian benefits. Either all students sit a replacement exam under external supervision, or this becomes a public scholarship manipulation case. Victor's mouth curved slightly. Public? You think people will listen to you? Not to me alone, I said. But they might listen to the parents whose children paid into V-Bridge and didn't get what they were promised. They might listen to the students framed as targets. They might listen to teachers whose initials appear in ledgers. People ignore victims. They do not ignore invoices. Adrian's eyes sharpened. He finally understood that I was not merely defending my innocence. I was threatening the business model. The next interruption came from the least dramatic person in the room. Mr. Evo cleared his throat. The external sync from the card is still active. Everyone turned. He swallowed. When we opened the folder, the system attempted to connect to a remote purge command, but the laptop is offline. The card contains a script designed to wipe the source folder if accessed. Meaning? Celia asked. Meaning whoever planted it expected someone to open it on a networked computer. It would delete itself and maybe leave only the answer screenshots. He looked at me with dawning respect. Using the offline laptop preserved it. Principal Soren sank slowly into his chair. In my first life, they had opened it on his office desktop. The visible files had remained. The cleanup folder had vanished. That was why no one found the ledger. Not because it never existed. Because the machine cleaned its own blood. Victor's expression turned toward Adrian. It lasted only a second, but it was the most honest emotion I had seen from him. Not concern, not anger, but irritation that his son had built a trap with a loose wire. Adrian's face flushed. Mara saw that look and understood she was already being lowered toward the altar. She stood abruptly. I'm not taking the blame for this. Her voice cracked, And this time, everyone believed the fear. Adrian said Alara had to fall before the fellowship. He said his father needed a clean ranking. He said if I helped, my tuition problem would disappear. Adrian snapped, "Shut up." 2 words.
No softness. No hero. Just command.
Mara recoiled, and the room finally saw the leash. Victor's suited man said, "This meeting is over." My mother took out her old phone. The screen was scratched, the case peeling, the camera poor. She pressed call. "Who are you calling?" Principal Soren demanded. "The police assistance line first," she said. "Then the scholarship board. Then my sister because she knows a journalist." Victor laughed once, quietly. "Mrs. Venn, you are escalating a school disciplinary issue into a legal matter you cannot afford." My mother looked at him. "My daughter could not afford your son's ambition either. Yet here we are." That sentence became the pivot of my second life. Not because it defeated Victor Vale. Men like him are not defeated by sentences. But because 3 students recorded it, 2 parents later quoted it, and 1 journalist built her headline around it. At the time, it only made Victor's face go still. He leaned toward his lawyer and murmured something. Adrian watched his father instead of me, and I saw the child inside the prince, desperate, furious, measuring love in usefulness. For one dangerous second, I almost pitied him. Then I remembered my mother coughing blood into a napkin because my expulsion ended her subsidized care. Pity died cleanly. The police did not arrive immediately. Eastbridge delayed, softened, reworded. The scholarship board asked for documents. Victor's people requested private mediation. Principal Soren tried to send students back to class with a speech about misinformation. But the story had already escaped through cracks no one could seal. Not as a clean truth. Truth never escapes cleanly. It leaked as a blurry clip of Adrian's cracked screen. As a screenshot of Mara at Terminal 4. As a rumor that the blue card held names. As my mother's line. By lunch, the entire school knew the exam had been stopped because the golden boy's phone broke open at the wrong moment. I should say I walked through the halls triumphant. I did not. I walked with my calculator case against my chest like a shield, my mother beside me, while students stared as if I had become contagious. Some looked guilty because they had believed the rumor before proof arrived. Some looked excited because scandal made them feel alive. Some looked afraid because their own names might be on that ledger. Theo slipped a folded note into my hand near the stairwell. It contained 1 sentence. "I saw Mara touch your case during homeroom. I will say it. Nessa sent me the unedited recording before the school confiscated her phone." Celia avoided my eyes but copied me on the witness policy file. Small bridges. Fragile. Ugly real. At home that night, my mother made rice porridge though her hands shook from exhaustion. Our apartment was the same as in my memory. Narrow kitchen, peeling windowsill, pharmacy receipts held to the fridge with a cracked magnet shaped like a strawberry. In my first life, I came home from expulsion and told her not to worry, then locked myself in the bathroom and vomited until my throat bled. In this life, I sat at the table and told her almost everything except the impossible part. I told her Adrian had planned it, the school was involved, and we needed copies of every bill, scholarship letter, and medical subsidy document. She listened without interrupting. Then she said, "Did you know this would happen?" I froze. My mother stirred the porridge. "You looked ready." I could have lied. I had lied to protect her before, and protection had become a cage. "I had a feeling," I said. "It was the smallest truth that would not send us both into madness." "A strong one." She nodded slowly. "Then keep having feelings." That was all. No demand for explanation.
No suspicion.
In another life, I lost her while trying to keep the worst of the world away from her. In this one, I understood she had always known the world was worst. She had simply been waiting for me to stop facing it alone. The next morning, Eastbridge tried to make the scandal boring. That was their first official defense. Boring kills outrage. Principal Soren sent a parent email calling the incident an irregularity involving unauthorized digital material and interpersonal conflict. Adrian was cooperating. Mara was receiving support. I was not named, which looked respectful until I realized it erased the attempted frame. The replacement scholarship exam was postponed pending review. Students were told not to spread unverified claims. Anyone sharing recordings could face disciplinary action. By 9 a.m., half the school had deleted posts. By 9:20, anonymous accounts reposted everything with subtitles. I did not wait for Eastbridge to decide my fate. Rebirth had taught me one rule. Whoever writes the first official version becomes the floor everyone else argues on. So at 9:30, I submitted my own written statement to the scholarship board, the district education office, and every parent email address I could verify from old event programs. I did not rant. I did not call Adrian evil. I listed times, locations, witnesses, file metadata, policy clauses, and unanswered questions. At the end, I wrote, I request that no student, regardless of family income or donor status, be permitted to benefit from an exam process compromised by documented evidence tampering. Then I attached the clip of Adrian's cracked screen. Not the most shocking evidence. The simplest. Everyone understands a message glowing through broken glass. By noon, parents were calling. Not all for noble reasons. Some demanded to know if their children's scores had been manipulated. Some wanted names from the ledger. Some wanted reassurance that paid advantages remained discreet. That was the beautiful ugliness of leverage. People who would not care about me cared deeply about whether they had been cheated by the same cheating system. Victor Vale understood this faster than the school did. At 12:16 p.m., I received an email from his legal team demanding I retract defamatory statements and surrender stolen data. At 12:18, my mother received a call from the hospital saying a billing review had found an administrative issue with her subsidy eligibility. There it was, the knife under the table. I wanted to panic. The old Alara would have. The new Alara opened a folder labeled pressure and began documenting. Screenshot of legal threat. Screenshot of hospital call log. Copy of subsidy approval. Timeline of both events. Then I called my mother's social worker, Ms. Arden, a woman I remembered from my first life, as kind but overworked. This time, I did not cry. I said, my mother's medical subsidy may be facing retaliatory interference connected to a school misconduct case involving a donor family. Can you confirm any change in writing? Silence. Then Ms. Arden said, send me everything.
Her voice changed.
Overworked people hate extra trouble, but they hate being used as weapons more. By the end of the day, the hospital billing issue reversed itself. Victor's legal email remained.
So, did my statement.
Adrian did not attend school. Mara did, briefly, surrounded by 2 counselors and no friends. She looked smaller without her audience. When she saw me near the lockers, she rushed forward. Alara, please. He made me do it. Everyone nearby pretended not to listen and listened with their whole bodies. I closed my locker. Did he make you choose my mother's birthday for the lock? Her mouth opened. I didn't know that was. Did he make you practice crying before the inspection? Her face crumpled. I was scared.
So was I said.
You used that against me. Mara grabbed my sleeve. You don't understand. People like Adrian don't ask. They decide. If I said no, I would have lost everything. I looked down at her hand until she released me. Then tell the truth officially. I can't. Then don't ask me to carry the weight for both of us. Her eyes filled. You've changed. I almost told her she had killed the girl who had not changed.
Instead, I said, no.
I arrived. I walked away before pity could turn me soft in the wrong direction. That afternoon brought the second trap. A rumor spread that I had hacked Adrian's phone and fabricated the cracked screen message using deepfake software from the robotics lab. It was absurd enough to be effective. People enjoy complicated lies because they make cowardice feel intellectual. Maybe both sides are guilty, someone said in chemistry. Maybe Alara is smarter than everyone and set it up. I turned around. If I'm smart enough to fake all that, I'm smart enough to win the exam without cheating. The room laughed, tension breaking, but I knew the rumor had purpose. Adrian could not erase proof, so he would contaminate it. Muddy water hides drowning. I needed independent validation. Mr. Evo had the network logs, but he was vulnerable. Ms. Hale had library footage, but the school controlled it. Celia had recordings, but her ambition bent toward safety. Theo had seen Mara touch my case, but a quiet boy's word could be crushed. I needed someone outside Eastbridge with a reason to pull the thread. My first life provided the answer. Dana Ree, the journalist my aunt loved, the one who later exposed a tutoring ring linked to Vale Tech, but never connected it to Eastbridge because the evidence had been destroyed years before. In this life, the evidence still existed. I emailed her from a new account with a subject line, "Student Fellowship may be connected to paid exam leak network." Then I waited exactly 11 minutes before she replied, "Do you have documents?" I sent the safe ones. Not the whole ledger. Never hand all your teeth to someone who just smiled. The third day after the cracked screen, Adrian returned to school. That was the day I learned humiliation had made him more dangerous, not less. He entered assembly late, without his prototype phone, wearing a plain watch and a bruised palm. Students whispered. He ignored them and walked straight to the stage. Principal Soren announced that Adrian had requested to address the senior cohort to discourage speculation. My stomach tightened. Of course. When accused, seized the microphone. Adrian stood under the Eastbridge crest, pale light on his perfect face, and said, "I made mistakes in who I trusted, but I did not frame Elara Venn." Beautiful opening. Admit something vague. Deny the core. Make yourself human. He continued, "My phone broke during a tense moment. A private message was misinterpreted. Files with my device name were found, but devices can be spoofed. I have given everything to investigators. What hurts most is that someone I considered a friend believes I would destroy her future." His voice cracked on friend. Girls in the second row sighed despite themselves. I felt, absurdly, the old wound open. Not because I believed him, because part of my body remembered wanting him to choose me. Trauma is humiliating that way. It keeps old doors unlocked. Then Adrian looked at me. "Elara, I'm sorry you feel alone. I hope when the truth comes out, you'll remember who stood beside you before this." That was the knife. Not denial, but ownership. He was telling the school I was emotionally unstable, punishing him for some private hurt. Mara watched from the side, face blank with terror. Principal Soren began clapping first. A few teachers joined. Some students hesitated, then followed because applause is contagious and cowardice has rhythm. I stood before I decided to. My chair scraped loudly. The clapping faltered. "May I respond?" I asked. Principal Soren's face hardened. "This is not a debate. Then why did you give one accused student a microphone and not the other?" Nessa muttered. "Good question. Loud enough to travel." Students turned. Adrian's expression remained gentle, but his eyes warned me. I walked toward the aisle. My heart pounded so hard my blazer moved. "I'll be brief," I said, though no one had granted permission. Adrian says he stood beside me. Yesterday, his legal team threatened me. The same day, my mother's hospital subsidy was questioned and then reversed after documentation was requested. Maybe those are coincidences. Maybe spoofed devices, false reports, planted cards, deleted chats, and donor pressure are all coincidences. But if Adrian wants truth, he should support an external investigation, a replacement exam, and the release of anonymized V-Bridge records to affected families. The assembly dissolved into noise. Adrian's smile thinned. Principal Soren ordered me to sit. I did not. "Say it," I told Adrian. My voice carried because the room had leaned in. "Say you support that." He looked at me for 1 second too long. There it was again, the gap between performance and choice. "Of course I support a fair investigation," he said. "External," I pressed. "Independent. With the fellowship suspended." Silence. The word fellowship mattered more to him than innocence. Everyone saw the hesitation. It lasted maybe 2 heartbeats. It was enough. He recovered. "I support whatever the school and authorities deem appropriate." Abolish nothing. This time, nobody clapped. I sat down, shaking, and Nessa slipped me a note on the back of an assembly program. "He bleeds when asked yes/no. Use that." I almost smiled. Not because the war was over, because I was no longer the only one keeping score. Dana republished the first article that evening. She did not name me because I was a minor. She named Eastbridge Academy, the Vale Future Fellowship, the suspicious evidence chain, and the existence of a hidden payment ledger under review. She quoted my mother's line without our names. My daughter could not afford your son's ambition either. The article spread beyond school gossip. Former students commented. Parents compared stories. A graduate from 3 years earlier wrote that she had been accused of plagiarism after challenging a donor student's award. Another said her scholarship interview vanished after she refused private tutoring from a Vail-approved center. Patterns emerged. Not proof yet, but smoke from many rooms. Victor Vail responded with a statement expressing concern about online harassment targeting minors and confidence in Eastbridge's rigorous integrity systems. It was smart. He wrapped himself around student privacy, making investigation look like cruelty. But Dana had baited him. Her second article, published the next morning, focused not on Adrian but on the integrity system itself. Fake corridor cameras, internal evidence handling, donor-funded fellowships judged by donor-linked administrators. She did not need the full ledger to make Eastbridge look rotten. She only needed to show where the locks were decorative. The school announced a temporary independent review by Friday. Principal Soren called it voluntary. Parents called it overdue. Students called it the crack screen review because teenagers turn everything into mythology by lunchtime. Adrian stopped looking at me in halls. Mara looked too much. Mr. Calder took personal leave. Mr. Evo disappeared from campus for one day, and I nearly panicked until he emailed from a private address. Logs backed up. Can testify if protected. I cried then. Quietly, in the library aisle between calculus and world history, because protection is the rarest form of kindness. But the biggest pattern disruption came from a person I had not considered. Adrian's younger sister, Iris Vale. She was 14, a first-year student with a sharp chin and eyes that made her look older than her uniform. She found me in the courtyard after school, while the jacaranda flowers dropped purple bruises onto the pavement. "You're Lara," she said. It was not a question. I closed my notebook. "You're Iris. My brother says you're obsessed with him." "Your brother says many things." She sat across from me without permission. "My father says you're opportunistic. Your father says expensive things." Iris stared, then laughed once despite herself. It made her look briefly like a child. She slid a tiny envelope across the table. "I don't like you," she said. "I don't need you to." "Good. Because I'm not doing this for you." Inside the envelope was a printed access code and a note. "Sparrow is not a password. It is a folder." My fingers went cold. Iris looked toward the administration building. "Adrian uses bird names for backups. Sparrow, Finch, Lark." I heard him yelling at Mara about which one opened. "If you found Sparrow, there are more." "Why tell me?" Her face closed. "Because when my brother fails, my father looks for someone smaller to punish. I am tired of being smaller." Then she stood and walked away, leaving me with the first evidence that the machine had rooms even Adrian did not control. I should have taken the envelope straight to Dana or the review board. Instead, I made one reckless choice. I went to the old music building. In my first life, I had hidden there after expulsion because nobody practiced piano after the arts budget cuts. It was where Adrian found me and said, "I wish you had trusted me before doing something stupid." I had apologized to him. Even now, remembering that apology made shame crawl over my skin. The music building also had a forgotten computer lab from before renovations, connected to the school intranet through a dusty switch nobody updated. If bird folders existed, their naming pattern might appear in cache logs. I told myself I was gathering information. Really, I wanted to open one more locked thing before someone took the keys away. The lab smelled of dust, sun-warmed plastic, and old rain. I booted a machine that groaned like waking heard it. The network accepted my student login. That alone proved Eastbridge had learned nothing. I searched system cache for Sparrow. Nothing. Finch. Nothing.
Lark.
A file path flashed, then vanished. vbridge archive /lark/legacy awards. My pulse kicked. I typed again. Access denied. I tried the code Iris gave me. The screen froze for 3 seconds, then opened a directory listing before locking again. 3 seconds was enough to see years. Fellowship winners.
Payment tiers.
Intervention notes. Target lists. My name under current suppression. My mother's hospital listed under leverage? Possible. I stopped breathing. Then the door behind me clicked. Adrian stood in the entrance to the lab. No audience.
No oyente el smile.
No broken phone. Just him and the version of me he had never planned to meet. You really don't know when to stop, he said. My hand moved toward my bag, where my calculator case rested with a hidden streaming phone still inside. I had not turned it on. Reckless, reckless, reckless. Adrian saw my glance and smiled. No recordings today? You'd know about recordings, I said. Yours made you famous. He stepped inside and closed the door. You think this is victory because people are whispering. They'll get bored. My father will make Soren resign, Calder retire, Mara unstable, and you overambitious. You'll keep your scholarship if you sign. Maybe even get money. Isn't that what your mother needs? There it was. The offer wearing the skin of mercy. Sign what? I asked. A correction. You were under stress. You accept the investigation found no conclusive proof Adrian Vale intentionally framed you. You regret public speculation. He pulled folded papers from his blazer. You sit the replacement exam privately. You lose the fellowship quietly, but another donor fund covers your tuition. My laugh surprised both of us. It was not loud. It was ugly. You still think this is about tuition? His eyes narrowed. Everything is about cost. No, I said. Some things are about debt. Adrian's jaw tightened. You owe me too, you know. I helped you. I made people notice you. You studied with me because my notes were better. I protected you from Mara. You aimed her. I liked you. That one landed strangely. Not because I wanted it. Because he sounded angry about it, as if affection were a loan I had defaulted on. Maybe, I said, in the way boys like mirrors that make them look taller. His hand slammed the papers onto the desk. Dust jumped. You don't get to rewrite everything because you're embarrassed. I stood slowly. I'm not rewriting. I'm restoring the parts you deleted. He moved fast then, grabbing my calculator case from the desk, still carrying the holy little box. He spun the lock. Mother's birthday, right? The old fear struck before thought. My hand went cold. He knew the combination, knew the symbol, knew the wound. He opened the case and found only the calculator, batteries, and charm. I had removed the streaming phone after school because the battery was low. Stupid. His smile returned. Empty. Like your apology, I said, but my voice shook. He noticed. Predators love proof that the body remembers even when the mind rebels. Adrian took the red charm between 2 fingers. This is what I don't understand about you. You act superior, but everything you do is sentimental. Your mother's birthday, her little charm, her bills. That's why people like you lose. You have too many handles. He pulled, and the charm's thread snapped. Something in me went quiet. Not calm. Quiet. Like a room after all the glass has already broken. Put it down, I said. Or what? He asked. Behind him, the dusty computer screen flickered. I saw our reflections in it. Him holding my mother's charm. Me standing with empty hands. The old trap reversed but not finished. The door opened again. Iris Vale stood there with Nessa, Theo, and Ms. Hale. Behind them, Celia held her tablet, already recording. Adrian turned so sharply, he knocked the cracked monitor against the wall. Iris. His sister's face was pale but steady. You said Lark was clean, she said. You said if I gave father the wrong archive, he'd stop checking my devices. Adrian's mouth opened. For once, nothing came out. Nessa looked at me, then at the broken charm in his hand. We followed because Iris said you might be stupid enough to come here alone. She was right, I admitted. My knees nearly gave way. Adrian recovered by attacking the weakest link. Iris, leave.
Now.
She flinched, but Theo stepped slightly in front of her. Theo, who barely spoke above a murmur, who had ink on his hands and fear in his shoulders, looked at Adrian and said, No, the word was small. It still filled the room. Celia moved the tablet closer. Adrian Vale, you are currently holding Alara's property after taking it from her desk. You also appear to have offered her a settlement document. Adrian dropped the charm as if burned. It hit the desk, red thread limp. My chest hurt so much I could barely inhale. Ms. Hale, the librarian, walked to the computer and photographed the screen. This machine still shows an access denied log for VBridge archive LARC, she said. I'm preserving that. Adrian stared at her. Do you know who my father is? Ms. Hale looked tired in the way underpaid women look tired, which is to say familiar with threats.
Yes.
That is why I am preserving it. Iris handed her phone to Celia. I recorded from the corridor after Adrian entered. Adrian's face changed then, not into fear exactly, but into recognition. The room had turned into the corridor from the first day, and this time he was the one standing with evidence in someone else's hands. He laughed. It was a bad laugh, cracked at the edges. You all think you're heroes because you caught one conversation? Do you understand what happens if VBridge opens? Half the school burns. Your parents, your friends, your precious scholarships. Everyone has touched it. Nessa folded her arms. Then let it burn evenly. Theo nodded once. Ms. Hale said, systems like this survive because everyone thinks they're the only one who will suffer by telling the truth. I picked up my mother's charm and held the snapped thread in my fist. You said I had too many handles, I told Adrian. You were wrong. I had roots. The Independent Review became Criminal Inquiry 2 days later. Not because Eastbridge suddenly found a conscience, but because Dana published the LARC access photo alongside testimony from 3 former students and a current staff member who confirmed fake cameras were used in disciplinary corridors. Victor Vale's statement changed tone. Adrian was a minor navigating intense pressure. Mara was one of several students involved. Principal Soren stepped aside temporarily, which is how powerful institutions say removed without admitting removal. Mr. Calder resigned for health reasons, which was insulting to every honest illness in the world. The replacement exam was scheduled under external supervision at a public testing center. All fellowship candidates could sit. The Vale Future Fellowship was frozen pending review. My mother said that meant they would find a new way to punish me. She was right. The night before the exam, a new leak appeared online. Photos of my apartment building, my mother entering the hospital, a caption calling me the scholarship girl milking sympathy. It was cruel but clumsy. Adrian's old style. The comments split between disgust and mockery. My hands shook over the phone. For 10 years, shame had been the weather of my life. I knew how fast it soaked through clothes. My mother took the phone from me and turned it face down. Look at me, she said.
I did.
What is the exam about? Mathematics, logic, applied reasoning, and data interpretation. Is there a section on rich boys being nasty? I choked out a laugh. No, then sleep. I wanted to tell her sleep was impossible. Instead, I lay down on our thin mattress and listened to her breathing from the next room. Sometime after midnight, I dreamed the river again. But this time, when the water rose, my calculator case floated open beside me, not as evidence, not as a trap, but as a little black boat carrying a red thread. The testing center smelled nothing like Eastbridge. No polished wood, no donor plaques, no fake cameras. Just fluorescent lights, metal detectors, board proctors, and desks arranged with brutal fairness. Adrian arrived with Victor. Mara arrived with a lawyer and red eyes. I arrived with my mother, Nessa, Theo, Ms. Hale, and Iris waiting outside like the strangest army ever assembled. Celia was there too, pretending she had come for procedural observation, which fooled no one. Before entering, Adrian stopped beside me. Last chance, he said quietly. For what? To take the safe outcome. I looked at him. Without the school stage, he seemed smaller. Still dangerous, but less mythic. Adrian, you mistook my fear for a bargaining position. It was never for sale. We sat the exam. That should have been cinematic, but exams are not cinematic. They are pencils, time blocks, dry lips, and the lonely discipline of solving what is in front of you. The first section was combinatorics. The second was proof logic. The third gave a data set about traffic flow and asked us to model failure points. I almost laughed because failure points had become my specialty. Halfway through, doubt came for me. What if trauma had dulled me? What if 10 years away from formal schooling had made me slower? What if Adrian was right that exposure was not victory? Then I touched the calculator case at the corner of my desk, now inspected and approved, and remembered the first day I woke back. 14 minutes. A torn lining. A pinhole lens. A girl with nothing but memory had turned a trap into a blade. I could solve a graph. Results were not immediate. That week stretched like wire. The investigation widened. V-Bridge records, once extracted from backups provided anonymously by someone everyone suspected was Iris, and no one could prove, showed 5 years of manipulated rankings. Some students had paid for leaked mock exams. Others paid for sabotage, anonymous tips, plagiarism flags, recommendation delays. Teachers received consulting honoraria. Administrators adjusted disciplinary outcomes. The fellowship was not a prize. It was a funnel. Vailtech used it to identify useful heirs, indebted strivers, and disposable geniuses. I had been categorized as disposable because my family lacked power. The phrase low family power appeared beside my name in 3 separate documents. Seeing it did not hurt the way I expected. It clarified. Mara's official statement came on the 8th day. She admitted to planting the card, submitting the false report, and coordinating with Adrian. She also provided messages showing Adrian had promised tuition support and threatened to expose her father's gambling debt if she backed out. Some students forgave her instantly because she cried well. I did not. Forgiveness is not a vending machine where confession drops a candy bar. But I did send one message through her lawyer. Tell the whole truth. Do not trim yourself into a victim so small the knife disappears. She never replied. That was fine. Not every person you defeat has to become part of your healing. Adrian's statement denied intent. Victor's lawyers argued that metadata had been misinterpreted, that minors exaggerate, that institutional logs lack context. Then Dana published the audio from the music building corridor, recorded by Iris, where Adrian offered me the settlement and spoke about cost. The public reaction shifted. Before that, some people saw a scandal. After that, they heard him. Tone matters. Contempt has a sound that transcripts cannot soften. Victor tried to claim the recording was illegal. That only made more people listen. The exam results arrived on a Thursday morning while rain streaked the classroom windows. I was in calculus, pretending to care about differential equations while everyone refreshed the scholarship portal under their desks. The email came at 10:07. My finger hovered. For a moment, I was 17 again in the worst way, all my future compressed into a screen. Nessa leaned over. Open it before I age. I opened it. First rank, Elara Ven. Score, 98.7. Second rank, Nessa Park. Third, Theo Baines. Adrian Vale's result was withheld pending investigation. My body did not understand victory at first. It waited for the catch. Then Nessa screamed. The classroom erupted. Not everyone cheered. Some looked away. Some clapped because they had always liked winners and were revising their loyalties in real time. Theo smiled at his desk like sunlight had embarrassed him. Miss Hale, who had come to deliver a library notice she did not need to deliver, wiped her eyes. I stared at the score until the numbers blurred. In my first life, Adrian took the rank I earned and wore it like proof he deserved everything. In this life, my name sat at the top not because the world became fair, but because enough people had prevented it from being stolen in that one measurable place. It was not justice. It was a foothold. Then the fellowship board announced the prize would be suspended, restructured, and removed from Vale family control. I would receive an independent academic grant equal to the full fellowship value, funded from recovered program reserves. My mother read the email 3 times that night. Full medical continuation included, she whispered. She sat down hard in the kitchen chair. I knelt in front of her, and she pulled me into her arms. We cried without elegance. Rice burned on the stove. Neither of us moved to save it. Adrian disappeared from school before the disciplinary hearing. Officially, he transferred overseas for privacy. Unofficially, Victor sent him away before investigators could corner him without lawyers. Mara withdrew. Principal Soren resigned after the board found serious failures of oversight, a phrase that should have been heavier but still made parents gasp at meetings. Mr. Calder faced charges related to evidence tampering and payments. Mr. Evo kept his job after parents demanded whistleblower protection. Ms. Hale became acting dean of academic integrity, which made her laugh for nearly a minute when she told me. I became a dean because a teenager refused to hand over a calculator case, she said. There are worse origin stories, I answered. But endings that arrive too cleanly are usually traps, so here's the part one did not tell anyone for months. I kept wondering why I had come back. Not philosophically. Specifically. Why that moment? Why not before my father died, before my mother became ill, before Eastbridge admitted me into a school built to use me? Why wake with the calculator case already in hand and Adrian already saying unlock it? Some nights, I feared the universe had not saved me out of kindness, but curiosity. It had placed me at the hinge and watched whether I would open differently. The answer came on the day I cleaned out my locker. Inside, under old notebooks, I found a small envelope addressed in my own handwriting. Not current handwriting. Older. Sharper. The handwriting of my 27-year-old self. My breath stopped. I opened it in the empty hallway, hands shaking. Inside was a single page and a thin black memory card. The page read, "If this reached you, it means the loop held. Do not trust clean endings. Sparrow opens the student lair. Lark opens the school lair.
Having opens valley."
The crash was not an accident. My knees hit the floor. For a long moment, the hallway tilted. Students moved at the far end, laughing, ordinary, alive. I pressed the paper against my chest and tried to breathe. I remembered the car, the rain, the river. I remembered headlights behind me before the turn. I remembered thinking of the combination as water rose. I had assumed my rebirth began with death and mercy. But what if my older self had done something before dying? What if she had found Raven and been killed for it? What if this second life was not a gift, but a message delivered through time by a woman who refused to vanish?
I did not tell my mother that night.
Some burdens should not be dropped raw into the hands of someone still healing. I told Ms. Hale because she knew how to preserve dangerous things. I told Dana Ree because stories need witnesses outside the building. I told Nessa and Theo because they had earned the truth by stepping into rooms where they could have stayed safe. Iris found out because she was Iris. She looked at the black card and went pale. Raven was my mother's folder, she said. That was the first time I heard Adrian and Iris had a mother who did not appear in Vale family portraits anymore. She died when I was 9. They said illness. Iris swallowed. She was auditing Vale scholarships. The story widened again. Not into school revenge, but something darker. Raven held records connecting Vale Tech's youth programs to data harvesting, scholarship coercion, and medical subsidy manipulation through partner charities. My mother's hospital review had not been improvised. It was a lever in a database. Low family power was not an insult scribbled by a cruel boy. It was a category generated by adults to identify students whose families could be pressured without publicity. The system did not merely cheat exams. It selected who could be frightened, indebted, isolated, and purchased. Adrian had not invented the machine. He had inherited a toy version and broken its screen in public. Dana did not publish Raven immediately. Evidence that large required care. Lawyers joined. Regulators asked quiet questions. Former employees surfaced. Iris gave testimony about her mother's files. Victor Vale stopped issuing warm statements and began refusing comment. Adrian remained overseas until a photo leaked of him at an airport, face half hidden, no phone in hand. People joked that he feared screens now. I did not joke. I knew better than to mistake exile for defeat. Adrian was like cracked glass, even broken, he could cut. Graduation arrived under a sky so blue, it looked expensive. Eastbridge tried to rebuild its image with banners about transparency and resilience. Parents smiled too hard. Teachers avoided certain names. The donor plaques had been removed for renovation, leaving pale rectangles on the wall where power used to hang. I walked across the stage in a white dress under my gown, my mother in the front row wearing the green coat she had mended twice. When they called my name as Dux, the applause rose unevenly at first, then stronger. I saw Nessa whooping without dignity, Theo clapping with both hands high, Miss Hale crying openly, Celia applauding like she was taking minutes, and Iris standing at the back beside Dana, arms crossed, face unreadable. At the microphone, I had prepared a safe speech about resilience. I looked down at it and thought of my first life, where my name had been a warning whispered in corridors. I thought of a locked case, a blue card, a cracked screen, a snapped charm, a river. Then I folded the speech. When I entered the school, I said, I believed fairness was something institutions gave to deserving students. I was wrong. Fairness is not given. It is built, guarded, documented, challenged, and sometimes dragged into the light while powerful people insist the room is already bright. Principal Soren's replacement shifted behind me. I kept going. I used to think being poor meant having no power. But I have learned power can be a mother saying no, a quiet student telling what he saw, a librarian preserving logs, a rival asking the exact question, a sister refusing to stay smaller, and a broken phone screen showing a message no one was meant to read. The audience was silent now. Not bored silent. Listening silent. So my advice is this. Do not unlock everything just because someone with a clean smile tells you to. Ask why they need it opened. Ask who benefits from your shame. Ask who wrote the procedure and who gets to ignore it. And when you do open what they fear, make sure someone is watching. I looked at my mother. Some doors are traps. Some locks are protection. Learn the difference. The applause came after a delay, then all at once. I did not need it, which made it sweeter. After graduation, Adrian sent one message from an unknown number.
No greeting. No apology.
Just a photo of a black raven perched on a metal railing, followed by the words, You still don't know who crashed the car. My hand went cold, but not with the old fear. With recognition. Somewhere, in another country or behind another borrowed device, Adrian wanted me to understand that the game had not ended. In my first life, that message might have destroyed me. In this one, I forwarded it to Dana, Ms. Hale, the investigator, and Iris. Then I blocked the number. Threats are lighter when shared. That night, my mother and I walked home under streetlights. She asked why I was smiling. I told her, because he thinks I'm still alone. She looked at me carefully, then nodded as if that explained everything. At home, I placed my calculator case on the kitchen table. The lock was scratched from years that had not happened yet. The red charm had been repaired with a thicker thread. Inside the case, beside the calculator and batteries, lay the black raven card sealed in an evidence sleeve. I turned the wheels to 1904 and clicked it shut. I used to believe rebirth meant getting a second chance to avoid the moment that ruined you.
I was wrong about that too.
Rebirth meant returning to the exact moment with enough memory to stop kneeling. Adrian told me to unlock my case because he thought the truth inside belonged to him. His screen cracked because lies, like glass, look strongest right before pressure finds the hidden flaw. And me? I did unlock it. Not for him. Not for the school. Not for the crowd hungry to watch a girl fall. I unlocked it for the woman I had been, the mother I refused to lose, and every student whose name had ever been written under low family power by people too comfortable to imagine we could read. The case stayed locked after that unless I chose otherwise. That was the lesson no committee could record. My secrets were not shame. My caution was not guilt. My softness was not a handle. The world had tried to make evidence out of my love, but love, properly guarded, became the reason I survived long enough to gather evidence back. Somewhere beyond the city, Victor Vale still had lawyers, Adrian still had threats, and Raven still had doors I had not opened. But for the first time in both my lives, the future did not feel like a hallway where everyone watched me walk toward a prepared accusation. It felt like a lock under my fingers, waiting for the right combination. And this time, I was the one deciding who heard the click.